This is the Dzogchen Sunday Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. It is Luke Skywalker Friday evening. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi. After our opening recitation, tonight let us chant an excerpt from the Discourse or Sutta on Enlightenment Factors given to Arahant Kassapa, known in Pali as Bojanga. Kind of sounds like Jenga, doesn't it? Let's chant. Mindfulness Enlightenment Factor Kassapa is well expounded, cultivated, and fully developed by me. Mindfulness leads to special knowledge, to realization of the noble truths and nibbana. What is meant by mindfulness? Mindfulness is noticing whatever cartwheels across the stage of our mind. Be it a sight, a sound, a sensation, a flavor, a scent, or the like. Be it an emotion, an intention, a thought, a memory, or an imagining. Whatever we notice, be it external or internal, physical or mental, pleasurable or painful, interesting or boring, glorious or grotesque. Please chant with me. Vulnerable investigation of phenomena, enlightenment factor Kassapa is well expounded, cultivated, and fully developed by me. Vulnerable investigation leads to special knowledge, to realization of the noble truths and to nibbana. The first noble truth pertains to stress. Regardless of what the cranky people might have taught you, feeling stress is not an indictment. We have evolved to perceive circumstantial and physical and interpersonal and mental stressors. We have evolved this capacity to keep us alive. The key so investigation is the opposite of being defensiveness, of hiding from what we're experiencing. And so we could think of investigation as our attitude towards what we notice. Ideally, we wish to be vulnerable, passive, visceral, random, and fleeting. What do we mean by fleeting? It means we don't try to control the duration of our experience. Please chant with me. Energy enlightenment factor Kassapa is well expounded, cultivated, and fully developed by me. Energy leads to special knowledge, to realization of the noble truths and to nibbana. So here's what I think I'm going to do. I'm going to move this over here and hit cut. And I'm going to hit paste. The Buddhas taught the Eightfold Path of enlightenment. It is a complete path. The seventh and eighth folds pertain to mindfulness and meditation. The more we practice mindfulness and meditation, the more our choices and utterances and deeds flow, not from contrived calculation, nor from wild scatterness, but instead from love's deeply centered spontaneity, which is known by many names. It can be described as right effort, or effortless effort, or doing without doing, which the Chinese refer to as wu wei. It could be described as going with the flow, being in the zone, or expedient means. Energy leads to special knowledge, to realization of the noble truths, and to Nibbana. Let us discuss the second noble truth. We have evolved survival instincts. When used appropriately, they can keep us alive. But if they're used all the time, if they become our default setting, our life is going to be very superficial, very stressful, and not remotely fulfilling. So when we practice mindfulness and meditation correctly, we can think of it as a type of neurological hygiene, wherein we get to reset our factory settings or restore our factory settings. Please chant with me. Love's joy, enlightenment, factor kasapa is well expounded, cultivated, and fully developed by me. When we indulge our controlling tendencies and overfocus as well as overanalyze, we can wind up so fatiguing our dorsolateral as well as medial prefrontal cortices that we trigger our amygdala, the seat of anxiety and aggression. However, when we cooperate with both facets of our autonomic nervous system, automatically the anxiety and aggression of our amygdala is calmed, and the empathy of our anterior cingulate gyrus is gently stimulated. There is no need. We can think of the Buddha's path. Well, let me jump back for a second. Sturgeon's Law reminds us. Good evening, Silent Garden. Sturgeon's Law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks. What could that suckiness look like? It looks like, well, I'm going to use an illustration, so bear with me. Whoops. Okay, I almost made a boo-boo. Please bear with me. Captain Butterfingers at your service. Let me hit paste. And then go back. And now I can continue with what I was intending to do. Copy. Okay. And paste. Okay, so what could that suckiness look like? It can look like the institutional Buddhism's promotion of being rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. However, consider proto-Buddhism, where instead we are taught to be flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. Instead of worrying about punishments and rewards and vows, we simply concerned ourselves with love. How important is love in proto-Buddhism? It consists of 50% of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. That's pretty important. How important is love? The great Karma Chakme Rinpoche insisted that the essence of all morality is simply non-violence. Furthermore, the late Tulku Thanda explained that the highest love is the spontaneous and uncontrived byproduct of simply practicing mindfulness and meditation. The Buddha taught there were 4 bases of mindfulness: the mental, the interpersonal, the physical, and the circumstantial. When we train in mindfulness and meditation, we spontaneously bring the 4 bases of mindfulness into kindnesses, intention, communication, conduct, and commerce. Please chant with me. Love's release to special knowledge to realization of the noble truths and Nibbana. What is the third noble truth? Nibbana. Nibbana literally translates as cessation. So cessation of what? Cessation of the tyranny of our survival drives. Please chant with me. Inhalations, coalescence, enlightenment, factor, kasapa, is well expounded, cultivated, and fully developed by me. As we inhale, air coalesces in our lungs. Additionally, every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we have evolved to automatically access the middle bit of our spinal cord, which functions as the core of our sympathetic nervous system. It has evolved to help us to notice in a very special way, to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice all mind's antics of perception, emotion, intention, cognition, recollection, and imagination. All of them, from the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque. But what are we to do? So, well, I almost overspoke. Please chat. Whoopsie. Inhalations, coalescence leads to special knowledge, to realization of the noble truths unto Nibbana. The 4th noble truth is simply the practice of the Eightfold Path. One moment, if you please. Whoops, wrong button. Let's try that again. What if enlightenment was simply mastery of the Buddha's Eightfold Path? But what do we mean by mastery? Mastery means we get so good at something, anything, that we practice it spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. Humans are wired for mastery. As children, we got so good at using the toilet instead of our diapers, at washing our hands, at tying our shoes, at riding a bike, at reading, writing, and arithmetic, that we could do so spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. Similarly, merely by playing with mindfulness and meditation, perhaps once every 12 hours or so, we can spontaneously master the entirety of the remaining 6 folds of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. Please chant with me. Exhalations, tranquility, and enlightenment factor kasapa is well expounded, cultivated, and fully developed by me. The more we practice mindfulness and meditation, the more we effortlessly master the first fold of the Buddha's path, our realization of impermanence, no self, and emptiness. But how does that work? Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we are wired to automatically access both the tippy top as well as the very bottom of our spinal cord. These two regions, working as a team, function as the core of our parasympathetic nervous system, which has evolved to help us to physically relax and mentally release during our exhalation to such a degree that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and even as non-graspable as a vast empty void. A simile is only as effective as it is relatable. Therefore, we have to ask the question, what? What is a real-world example of a non-graspable vast empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although could be tantalizing to the eye, feels non-graspable to the hand? And so we see that emptiness is just a metaphor for the fleeting experience latent within every exhalation. It lasts as long as the exhalation until the next inhalation when the cycle begins afresh. But what about the mystery of no self? It's only mysterious if we look at it literally. What happens when we look at it figuratively? Think of it this way. Every time we relax during our exhalation, whatever we noticed, even if it's the label we are applying to ourselves, whatever label we are applying to ourselves, or whatever sense of self we noticed during our previous inhalation, could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and utterly non-graspable. Please chant with. Oopsie, got ahead of myself. Here we go. Exhalations, tranquility, leads to special knowledge, realization of the noble truths and nibbana. Consider, if you will, special knowledge. As a child, my mother would say, don't fall out of the tree and you'll crack your skull and all your brains will fall out. And I thought that was weird because I always thought of the brain as one singular unit. However, it turns out old mom was right. Our brain is full of many organelles. And the most sustainable way for to use all the organelles of our central nervous system is for us to practice the neurological hygiene of consistently practicing noticing, or vulnerably practicing noticing and relaxing about every 12 hours or so. Please chant with me. Remedial equanimity or balance enlightenment factor kasapa is well expounded, cultivated, and fully developed by me. Equanimity can best be understood in terms of a universal remedy. Whatever we experience, whether it is beautiful or ugly, whether it is melodious or harmonious, whether it is pleasurable or painful, whether it is fragrant or foul, whether it is delicious or disgusting, whether it is external or internal, physical or mental, interesting or boring, glorious or grotesque. The remedy is the same. Notice as you breathe in and relax as you breathe out. Let's take it a step further, shall we? We are already wired. Let me for this here real quickly and then reach for something. Please bear with me. So we notice and we relax, not because we silently and mentally recite these verbs in harmony with our inhalation and exhalation, not because we force ourselves to. Every living, complex organism on this planet notices and relaxes in harmony with their inhalation and their exhalation. Then why do we play with the silent and mental recitation of these verbs? Because it reminds us to take a relaxing break from the exhausting habit of actively competing against our own autonomic nervous system, and instead to cooperate with it vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. Let us conclude our opening recitation together. Remedial equanimity or balance leads to special knowledge, to realization of the noble truths, and to Nibbana. Having completed our opening recitation, let us now shift gears. Let us gently invite our subtle energy to coalesce at our crown. To do this, we shall use two techniques. The first is simply adjusting our respiratory frame of reference. Every time we feel air enter our nostrils, let us silently and mentally recite the verb noticing. Every time we feel air exit our nostrils, let us silently and mentally recite the verb relaxing. And now for our second technique. It's rather simple. Let us take our left index finger and use it to support the lower knuckle of our right index finger, palms up in our lap. Let us consider our hands yet again, our left hand. So in addition to supporting our right index finger, our left hand can use its thumb to touch the lower set of creases on its little finger. Now, ergonomically, it's most sound for you to keep your hands in your lap. I'm just lifting them up so you can see what's going on. So placing our left thumb upon the lower set of creases of its little finger reminds us that we are on the first set of 12 inhalations. We keep track of those 12 inhalations on our right hand. Every time we silently and mentally recite the verb noticing, we could advance our thumb across the various sets of creases. Together, let us do this right now for about a minute. Having come to our last set of creases on our right index finger, we can now advance our left thumb to its next set of creases. And now you get the basic idea of how we can count 12 sets of 12 inhalations each. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist philosophy or meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I tend to check for questions about once every 6 minutes or so. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation or philosophy, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window. In the interim, as you feel air enter your nostrils, please silently and mentally recite the verb noticing. And as you feel air exit your nostrils, please silently and mentally recite the verb relaxing. Give yourself permission, give your mind permission to roam wherever it does. Do not try to control it. Do not try to concentrate. Oh, good, a question. Silent Garden asked, if there is no agent, no action, no receiver, what structure remains for karma function? Excellent question. You're clearly very intelligent. So number one, let me see here real quick. So to answer your question, I'm going to tap, let's tap button 9, and let's go over here. When we look at the Eightfold Path, there is no mention of karma, but there is a mention of loving kindness. In fact, loving kindness comprises 50% of the Eightfold Path. Pretty cool. So think of it this way. There are two types of, well, let me just go over here. Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks, including people, including many meditation teachers. So 90% of meditation teachers are enthusiastic to be rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling. elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. And that rigidity causes them to look at no self literally. But not everything is literal. 10%, approximately 10% of meditation teachers strive to be flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. It takes flexibility to recognize that not all statements are literal. Evolution tells us that way back, when we all lived in the ocean and we were microscopic little entities, first we just simply noticed things in an effort to try to eat and also to try not to be eaten. In time, we were able to recall past perceptions and anticipate future perceptions. And so recall, perception, and imagination became the armature upon which mind evolved. Therefore, it can be argued that we evolved to think symbolically. So what happens when we look at no self figuratively? Think of it this way. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever label or sense of self we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and even less graspable, or as non-graspable as a vast empty void. What's a real-world example of a non-graspable vast empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful, cloudless morn, which although could look tantalizing to the eye, could feel non-graspable to the hand. So emptiness of self is a figurative way of exploring the conventional and the ultimate, the yang and the yin, the samsaric and the nirvanic, available during each phase of breath. So our job is simple. We set aside some time, maybe once every 12 hours or so, to sit comfortably and notice and relax in harmony with our inhalations and our exhalations. Doing that, we cannot help but master the remaining 6 folds of the path, including love, the essence of all morality. In the second to the final passage of the Buddha's discourse on the 4 bases of mindfulness, he explained that thusly one could master his path in as little as 7 days. When let's look at it this way. When we indulge our rigid tendencies and our controlling tendencies and wind up over-focusing and over-analyzing, we cannot help but exhaust our dorsolateral and medial prefrontal cortices, thus triggering our amygdala, which functions as the seat of both anxiety and aggression. However, when we rely upon our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems by noticing and relaxing vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly in cooperation with our inhalations and our exhalations, not only does that calm the anxiety and aggression of our amygdala, but it gently stimulates the empathy of our anterior cingulate gyrus. So this visceral realization of no self and emptiness only come if we're practicing mindfulness and meditation correctly. If the way we meditate makes us more anxious and more aggressive, then we're running headfirst into a brick wall. However, if the way we practice mindfulness and meditation calms our anxiety and aggression and increases our empathy, then we're going in the right way. So I see a second question. I'm going to tap button 8. Okay, so an individual asks or states that, well, they were wondering if the five aggregates discourse points us to the realization that there is no discoverable self. Incorrect. That is a literalist view. A literalist view is a product of rigidity and will take you many places, but enlightenment is not one of them. The only path to enlightenment is by being flexible and by remembering that words and phrases have multiple meanings. There are literal statements, there are similes, and there are metaphors. And emptiness is only a metaphor. So, if someone tells you that it takes great intellectual effort to become a Buddha, they are leading you astray. Becoming a Buddha is as easy as noticing and relaxing in harmony with our breathing about once every 12 hours or so, and you can do it in as little as 7 days. So you don't have to discover if there's a self. If we are honest, there will be times when we put labels on our mind or we put labels on our body. As we breathe in, so as we relax into our exhalation, whatever labels we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, less graspable. That's it. You cannot think your way to nirvana. You cannot believe your way to nirvana, but you can cooperate your way to nirvana. Cooperate with your own spinal cord, with your own ability to notice and relax. It is so integral to the Buddha's path that its nickname is our Buddha nature. Our Tathagata Garbha is none other than our autonomic nervous system's capacity to passively notice and viscerally relax in harmony with our breathing. We're now going, I would like for us now, if we could shift gears. Let us gently invite our real or imagined subtle energies to coalesce in our chest. We shall use 2 methods. Let's begin by altering our respiratory frame of reference. Every time we feel our chest swell, let us silently and mentally recite, noticing. Every time we feel our chest subtly sink as gently we exhale, let us silently and mentally recite the verb, relaxing. The second method we could use involves our fingers. Instead of using our left index finger, this time let's use our left middle finger to support the lower knuckle of our right middle finger, palms up in our lap. If you are acquainted with the teachings of the Chan masters or the Zen masters, you may remember, forgive my pronunciation, Yong Jie Xuan Jui's Song of Enlightenment. If I remember correctly, it's between 60 and 80 stanzas long. And in it, he describes that it's effortless to master the path, and that everything is empty, even emptiness is empty. And that's just a metaphor for noticing and letting go in cooperation with our breathing. The teachings are part of a slender tradition that are sometimes described as Soto Zen, sometimes described as Sutra Mahamudra, sometimes described as Mahasandhi, sometimes described as Ati Yoga, sometimes described as Trek Cho. The simple practices or the most effective practices. You are utterly welcome. Here's a simple rule of thumb. If somebody tells you the journey of enlightenment is difficult, they might mean well, but they have yet to master the path. If someone tells you that it's easy and they're being sincere, then they most likely understand the Buddha's teachings. For remember, the Buddha taught one could master his path in as little as 7 days. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. For Meditate Like a Jedi is made possible thanks to the generosity of viewers just like you. In approximately 11 hours, I would very much like to return for tomorrow's dawn, recitation, explanation, and practice of meditating like a Jedi. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.